The encounter, the grand concert hall, was glowing with golden light. Velvet curtains framed the stage, and chandeliers sparkled above the heads of the audience. That evening, people had come from far and wide to listen to Adrian, the elite violinist who was praised as one of the best in the country. His reputation was built on flawless technique, perfect timing, and a pride that matched his fame. When he finished his performance, the hall filled with thunderous applause. He bowed deeply, smiling with confidence, sure that no one could ever rival his skill. After the show, Adrian stepped into the lobby where fans and music students crowded around him. They looked at him with admiration, asking for advice, autographs, and a chance to touch his violin. Among them stood Clara, a modest woman in a simple dress. She carried no instrument case, no jewelry, and her shy eyes suggested she was out of place in such a grand setting. While others whispered loudly about technique and fame, Clara quietly listened, her presence almost unnoticed. Adrian's sharp eyes caught her. Something about her plainness amused him. With a proud smirk, he asked, "And what about you? Do you play?" His tone was playful, but there was mockery hidden in it. Clara hesitated, her voice soft but steady. "I used to play." The crowd chuckled at her words. Some shook their heads, as if she were foolish to even say such a thing. Adrian raised his brow, his pride demanding a test. "Used to?" "Then prove it," he said as he carefully handed her his priceless violin. The audience gasped. No one ever touched Adrian's instrument. But he was certain this simple woman would stumble and embarrass herself. He chose the most difficult piece, one even his students failed to master. "Play this," he said with confidence, sure that she would fail. Clara took the violin with trembling hands, her eyes downcast, her breath uneven. She placed it under her chin, the bow resting on the strings. For a brief moment the hall filled with whispers and laughter, then silence. Clara closed her eyes and drew the first note. It rang out pure and strong, cutting through the air like light-breaking darkness. The audience stilled. Adrian leaned forward, his smirk fading as the simple woman began to play. The revelation. The moment Clara's bow touched the strings, the air inside the hall shifted. The sound was not weak or clumsy as many expected. It was powerful, smooth, and filled with emotion. Each note carried a weight of hidden stories she had kept inside her heart for years. The difficult passages Adrian had chosen to humiliate her flowed easily from her hands. Her fingers moved with perfect rhythm, dancing across the fingerboard with speed and grace. The bow glided, then struck with precision, bringing fire and softness in equal measure. It was not only skill, it was soul. The audience froze. No one dared to whisper anymore. Their laughter had died, replaced by wide eyes and open mouths. People leaned forward in their seats, trying to catch every detail of the unbelievable performance. Some clutched their chests as if the music itself had reached inside them. Adrian, who had been standing proudly, slowly lowered into his chair. His smirk was gone. His eyes followed her hands in disbelief. This was not luck, nor beginner's charm. This was mastery. He realized with growing unease that Clara was not just someone who used to play. She was a hidden genius, someone who had lived in silence while carrying greatness inside her. The piece grew harder, climbing to impossible runs and lightning-fast movements. Yet Clara did not falter. Her face was calm, her body still, only her hands alive with fire. The music soared higher and higher until it felt like the hall itself was trembling. The chandeliers seemed to shine brighter, and the audience was no longer watching a simple woman, they were witnessing a phenomenon. By the time the final note rang out, there was no sound but her violin. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with awe. For a few long seconds, no one even clapped. They were too shocked. Then, as if waking from a dream, the hall erupted into applause. Cheers, whistles, and shouts echoed like thunder. People rose to their feet, clapping until their hands ached. Clara lowered the violin, her face soft with a shy smile. She did not bow proudly or act like a star. She simply stood as if the music belonged to the audience, not to her. Adrian remained seated, his pride shattered. He had tried to humiliate her, but instead she had revealed a truth he could not deny. She was greater than him. The legacy after. Clara's final note faded. The hall stood in thunderous applause. Some people even had tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty and power of her playing. In that moment, she was no longer a simple woman. She was a master, a true artist who had silenced doubt with music alone. Adrian sat frozen. His pride had been broken, yet deep inside, he felt something more than shame. He felt respect. For the first time in his career, he had met someone whose soul could reach farther than his skill. He slowly stood and, with trembling hands, clapped for Clara. The audience noticed this gesture, and their applause grew even louder. Echoing through the golden hall, when Clara handed the violin back, she smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you." She did not seek fame, nor did she stand tall with arrogance. To her, music had always been personal, a way to honor the love of her late mother who had once taught her to play. She never expected the world to hear her again, but the world did hear. That night, whispers turned into stories, and stories spread like wildfire. Soon, newspapers wrote about the mysterious woman who humbled the elite violinist. Videos taken by audience members spread across the country, and Clara's name became a symbol of hidden greatness. Invitations poured in from music halls and orchestras, but Clara did not chase them. She chose carefully, performing only when she felt her heart called her to share the music. Adrian, on the other hand, carried the memory of that night like a scar and a blessing. He admitted publicly, "I thought I was teaching her a lesson. Instead, she taught me one." His words humbled him in the eyes of his fans, and people admired him more for his honesty. He began to play with more emotion, less pride, because Clara had reminded him of what music truly meant. Years later, Clara stood on another great stage, this time by invitation, her name printed on banners outside. She played not for glory, but for the love of her mother and the joy of music itself. Adrian was there, not as a rival, but as a friend and fellow musician. They bowed together, side by side, before a roaring audience. That single night when a simple woman was forced to play had changed both their lives. It became a legend, a story told again and again, that greatness is not always dressed in fine clothes or announced with fame. Sometimes it hides quietly in the hearts of those who wait for the right moment to shine.